At the beginning of the film, we see a car full of 6 friends experiencing a tire burst in the middle of the road. The car swerves at high speed, causing one of the women to hit her head. This group consists of 3 women and 3 men. The woman in pink is Sarah, the one in a green jacket is Karen, and the one who hit her head is Jody. Among the guys, Jeff wears a blue shirt, Todd wears gray, and Eric wears white. They are all traveling to Jody's sister's birthday, which is being celebrated in a remote town. So remote that only a few cars pass through this route in a month. At first, everything seems fine. Todd, the car's owner, plans to replace the tire with a spare. Since they have 3 men in the group, it shouldn't be a difficult task. Meanwhile, Sarah still wants to take selfies to post on social media, but due to the remote location, getting a signal is tough. Curious, Karen walks a few meters away and finds a spot with a signal. Meanwhile, Jody and Karen take cover behind the car as the weather becomes too hot. Eric heads into the bushes to relieve himself. Todd, distracted by Sarah, lets Jeff change the tire alone. Jeff successfully replaces the tire, but due to the car's slight downhill position, it rolls away. As he picks it up, he notices a bullet lying in the middle of the road. Meanwhile, his friends are chatting, unaware of the danger. Todd sees the rolling tire and runs after it. At the same time, Sarah approaches the newly replaced tire, but is horrified to see Jeff lying dead. Shocked, she stands frozen, unable to react. Todd, still chasing the tire, remains unaware that something is wrong. Suddenly, in just a split second, Sarah is shot from an unknown direction. Karen and Jody are also unaware that they're in danger. Sarah's eyeball is pierced by a bullet, followed by another shot. Realizing the situation, Karen panics and shouts for her friends to take cover behind the car. Todd, still unaware of the shooter, is shot in his left shoulder. Meanwhile, Eric, who hasn't reached the car yet, hides behind a tree trunk. They are under relentless gunfire, forced to stay behind the car. No one expected a simple tire burst to turn into a nightmare. It's now clear that the tire was intentionally blown by a trap set by the shooter. An hour passes, and they struggle with their entrapment. Karen, coming from a military family, assumes the shooter is using a silencer to muffle the gunfire. The bullets not penetrating the car suggest the shooter is at a considerable distance. Todd, with his wounded shoulder, is weak and unable to move much. Eric remains behind the tree, hoping for a miracle. The group realizes the tire Jeff replaced was already installed. They just needed to tighten the bolts. But given the situation, that's impossible. They must find another way to escape. Karen remembers that 3 meters away, she had a signal on her phone. Todd, attempting to reach out, is handed a stick by Jody to extend his phone. Before this, Karen sets up her Google Assistant to automatically call 911 if a signal is detected. Todd quickly points the phone toward the signal, but just as Karen shouts, 911, the phone is shot by the unseen sniper. Plan B. Todd suggests putting the car in neutral and pushing it back to a spot with a signal. They form a strategy. Jody will be positioned at the front to record the shooter's location, while Karen will hold a fake scarecrow at the rear as a decoy. Todd tries to open the car door and shift the gear into neutral. At that moment, the scarecrow is shot. Todd quickly gets inside and attempts to insert the keys, but with bullets flying, he has to hide first and doesn't get the chance to switch the gear. The good news is that Jody spots the shooter, hiding in a tree with a sniper. It's unclear why he's doing this, but he must have been waiting there for a long time. Still unable to shift the gear, Todd looks for protection. He spots a toolbox in the back of the car and decides to grab it. He quickly fashions an iron cover as a hand shield. Meanwhile, Eric, still hiding behind a tree, has no idea what his friends are planning. With the shield in place, Todd signals Karen and Jody to take positions. In a split second, he jumps into the car and finally shifts the gear to neutral, but in the process, he gets shot in the hand. The car immediately starts rolling downhill. Karen and Jody try to hold the car back, but it's too heavy. Jody loses her grip and gets thrown off, leaving her behind. The unbolted tires become an easy target for the shooter, who fires at them, causing the car to stop. Karen realizes this is their chance. While the shooter reloads, Jody can make a run for it. At the same time, Eric also tries to escape, but he's shot in both legs, making it impossible for him to move. Instead of finishing him off, the shooter deliberately lets Eric bleed out. An hour later, Todd notices a bottle of water left in the car. They are all extremely thirsty, but try to share it carefully. Just as Eric is about to take a sip, he gets shot in the hand, worsening his condition. Even the long-distance sniper is still human. He must also feel hunger and thirst. Meanwhile, Jody, having no other choice, has to relieve herself right next to Karen. Todd, heartbroken, sees crows eating Sarah's body. Unable to accept it, he decides to walk toward her, lying lifeless in the middle of the road. But surprisingly, the shooter doesn't fire at him. Todd even has time to kiss Sarah and hold her hand. Meanwhile, Eric, barely conscious, sees a wolf approaching. Realizing he's about to be eaten alive, he surrenders to his fate. However, just then, Todd notices a car passing in the distance, a rare sight on this deserted road. Unfortunately, before he can react, Todd is shot. The wolf, startled by the gunfire, leaves Eric alone. Todd dies right there, next to Sarah's body. The approaching car's driver sees Karen and Jody waving frantically, but just as hope rises, a bullet strikes the woman's hand, shattering her ring finger. Blood splatters everywhere, and she loses control of the steering wheel. The car crashes straight into Todd's vehicle, causing Jeff's decapitated head to fall off. In an instant, Karen and Jody's last hope is gone. The woman in the car starts regaining consciousness, but before she can react, she is gunned down. At the same time, we see a father desperately trying to save his young daughter, who was thrown from the car in the crash. Karen and Jody scream at him to stay behind cover and call 911. To their relief, the father is now in an area with cell signal coverage. The shooter, unaware of the father's exact location, fires at a car's gas tank until it starts leaking. Eventually, the car explodes, leaving the father with no cover. Helpless, he burns alive. Across the street, his wounded daughter slowly regains consciousness. But just as she opens her eyes, the long-distance psychopath shoots her in the head, killing her instantly. In just a few minutes, Karen and Jody witness one gruesome death after another. Instead of things improving, the situation only worsens. They are now desperate, unsure of how to escape the sniper's reach. Even the assistant's car can't pass through this road safely. Eventually, Karen comes up with a plan. They will make their move once night falls. She explains that the shooter's vision will be impaired if there's enough smoke in the dark. As night settles, the sniper remains vigilant, never taking his eyes off the area. Meanwhile, Karen prepares by cutting apart the car seats, while Jody gathers supplies: a bottle of gasoline, a bag of clothes, and a drink box from the trunk. Luckily, there's still 2 drinks inside, and they quickly share them. Jody then uses the shirts from the bag as emergency masks. Without hesitation, she pours gasoline onto the car seats, and Karen sets fire to a newspaper with a lighter. The car soon catches fire, releasing thick smoke. However, the smoke isn't enough to fully obscure them. Still, it begins to frustrate the sniper as his vision becomes less clear. Just then, Karen spots a police car approaching. This confirms that the father's 911 call went through, and authorities have traced their location. The officers even bring 2 snipers to counter the mysterious shooter. Upon arrival, the police immediately assess the dire situation and call for backup from the state police. But before they can act, one officer is shot in the jaw, killing him instantly. Tragically, the dead officer falls onto the car's accelerator, causing it to move forward. Seizing the moment, Karen urges Jody to run, but Jody hesitates, too terrified to move. With no other choice, Karen runs alone, but just as the smoke starts to clear, she is shot and dies on the spot. Now, of the 4 officers, only 2 remain. Determined, Jody makes a desperate dash toward the police car nearby. A fierce gunfight erupts between the police and the sniper, but the shooter is clearly more skilled. With no other options, Jody jumps into the police car and accelerates straight toward the tree where the sniper is hiding. Incredibly, she succeeds, crashing into the tree and knocking the shooter down. Jody quickly gets up and rushes to grab the fallen rifle. Meanwhile, the sniper frantically tries to cut himself loose from the rope tying him to the tree. For the first time, the mysterious shooter's face is revealed. He had been perched in that tree, waiting for victims, without any real motive. Throughout the entire film, we are never told who he actually is. Panicked yet determined, Jody opens fire, shooting him multiple times until he is finally dead. But she isn't satisfied. She takes one final shot to the man's head to make sure he's gone for good. However, while reloading, the rifle suddenly jams. Frustrated, Jody uses the gun's tip to smash the man's face repeatedly until it is unrecognizable. That's when she notices scratches carved into the rifle, each one marking a life taken on this road. As a final act, she prepares to hit him one last time. But in a cruel twist of fate, the gun unexpectedly fires, shooting Jody in the neck. It's an infuriating moment to witness. Honestly, it would have been better if the scene ended when the shooter died. So, if you ever plan to travel, make sure you know exactly which road you're taking. So that's it. Hope you enjoy the story. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more videos.